Good day, everybody. How's it going? Tim Meister here. Welcome back to the beautiful city of Rockport. This video is going to be quite special as a whole year after dropping support for City Skylines 1, Colossal Order has just released a brand new content creator pack made by Thomas13TO. And this is the Mountain Village content creator pack. It's a collection of 50 or so buildings that are kind of in a mountain village ski resort kind of vibe, and I really love it. As soon as I got access to it, I knew immediately what I wanted to build, and in this build we're gonna head on over to the other side. We're gonna finally move away from the peninsula in which the actual city is located on. We're gonna head across the river into this location here where I'm gonna be building a little ski village, but it's not gonna be any old boring ski village. It's going to be on the scale of like Banff or Whistler in BC. It's going to be a really big and quite intricate village that we're going to be building here today. It's going to be complete with, you know, everything that you would need to have a proper town built in this kind of bowl area around these mountains where there's going to be a whole collection of ski hills. So it's going to be a really exciting episode. So grab your popcorn, everybody, sit back and relax. Now, as I just mentioned, as soon as I got access to these buildings, I plopped them down in the city, just kind of played around with them, seeing what they looked like, and I immediately knew what I wanted to use these buildings for. Now, to give you guys a little bit of context, in 2022, I had the opportunity to take a few months off work and literally just set out alone, just me and my car, and travel all across North America. So I drove all across Canada, drove throughout the US. I did like 30 some states. I did over 30,000 kilometers in 3 months. And during my travels, I got the opportunity to drive through a lot of world-class ski towns, such as Banff, which I guess isn't really a ski town. It's kind of a popular touristy town within one of Canada's more popular national parks, but there is skiing in the area, so I guess it's kind of a ski town. But I also got the opportunity to visit Whistler, which is truly world-class skiing country. And I also got a chance to drive through multiple ski towns in Colorado. And a lot of these towns kind of have like this log home, you know, this typical mountain village kind of theme to them. And immediately when this pack was released, that is the first thing I thought of. And I immediately thought, you know what, I got to build something like Whistler, BC up in this town, because we definitely have the terrain for it in this city. You know, we have a big collection of different mountains and biomes on this map. So it's a perfect location for some type of ski town. Now, I guess you could say maybe this isn't the most realistic thing that I'm doing because I've been planting palm trees and more of like a tropical, semi-tropical vibe so far in this city, and then I'm building a ski town. But you know what? This is a brand new building pack and I'm really excited to play with it. So we're going to skimp out a little bit on the realism side, and you know, we're gonna head into the mountains. We're just gonna assume that we're at a higher elevation over here and the climate's a bit colder. You know, we're still gonna remain somewhat realistic, but we're just gonna, you know, do something unique. So if you look at Whistler on Google Maps, it's actually a pretty big town. So you have kind of like a downtown area that is just at the bottom of the ski hill, and this is where you'll find all kinds of ski shops. You'll find restaurants, hotels, pretty much everything you would need to go out on a big ski excursion. But just outside of this little downtown area is a whole actual village. So there's homes, there's cottages, there's actual people who live here. There is a big collection of like condos and hotels and whatnot all throughout the entire area. There's also golf courses, and it's just such a unique area near Whistler because you can literally go there in June, for example, and down at the bottom in the valleys of these massive mountains, the climate will be quite warm. Like you can go out golfing, you can walk around in a t-shirt and be completely fine. Meanwhile, the hill is still snow-capped, so you can literally just boot up and go skiing. It's pretty wild. So that's kind of what I'm going for with this build. I want to make an all-purpose kind of touristy town where I'm going to use all of these buildings. So we have like police stations, a little hospital, everything in this kind of mountain village theme. And I'm going to actually build a proper functioning village down here at the bottom of these mountains. So we're going to start off by doing that. We're going to be plopping buildings for most of this episode, and a bit later on we'll get into kind of the more detailing side of things. So it's going to be a pretty exciting episode. I had a really good time building this one. And included in this little village, we're going to have a nice collection of parks as well. I'm going to make sure to make use of all the parks that are included in this pack as well. There's a fair number of them, which are really well crafted. So shout out to Thomas13TO on this one. He's done a really wonderful job at crafting these buildings in this CCP. It's awesome to see that, you know, the developers, Colossal Order, is still willing to support City Skylines after all this time. Now, I know they're not going to be making any updates to the actual game, but it's still nice that they've given some creators the opportunity to create content for this game a year after it has supposedly been dropped from support. So it's good to see, because the player base for City Skylines is still very active. It's still a super popular game, and I still enjoy playing it just as much as City Skylines 2, even after, you know, an entire year of it being out. And I fully intend to keep playing my Rockport map for a good while. So in this build, my intention is literally to plop every single building in this pack. I think there's about 50 or so. I forget the exact number, but there is a ton of hotels. There's a ton of like little shops. There's a nice collection and a nice variety of different kind of buildings. And I think most of them are just unique buildings, so they draw in tourists from elsewhere. And that's, you'll see at the end of this episode, it's gonna become a problem in itself. But that's okay, you know, the town looks cool, and it's, yeah, I'm super happy with the way this turns out, so you'll just have to watch and see how everything develops. So essentially, this town is right at the foothills of this mountain, and it's one of the highest mountain peaks on this entire map, so of course there's going to be a ton of room to build all kinds of ski paths and things like that, so I'm going to do a fair bit of terraforming a little later on too. But for now, I'm just trying to plop all of these hotels and shops and you know, all of these buildings just in the most strategic locations where I think skiers would end up right after going down this hill, right? Like, where would a ski hill end? And then these skiers could just literally put their skis up on a rack or something and just walk into one of these stores without having to like walk a crazy distance, right? Most ski towns are built in a way that makes them as accessible as possible to the skiers, or at least like the good ones tend to be built that way. So I'm just kind of trying to emulate that in this build. And of course, there's a nice collection of hotels in this pack as well, including this nice castle. So I just felt it appropriate to build it a little bit higher up on the town, so then the guest can just peek over the town, you know, probably in the winter time. If there's a little bit of snow, it would be a quite, you know, a nice view. And then in the back of this hotel is going to be another portion of the ski hill. So skiers coming down from the mountain can literally just go right up into the hotel and hunker down for the night. So just trying to make this town as accessible and kind of as realistic as I can possibly make it. Now, I've only gone skiing a handful of times in my life. I'm not very good at it. I can hold my own. I'm at the point where I can mostly stay on my feet, and I, you know, do some pretty shallow S-turns, I guess, but I'm in no means an expert. But I've always just skied at my local ski hill that's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's very small. There is just one clubhouse that contains a restaurant, and that's it. So I've never actually had a chance to live and experience one of these huge ski towns. I've only visited them in the summer when I was on my big road trip. So, you know, I've never really got the chance to know how they run and how, you know, it actually is at peak ski season. So I'm just kind of basing everything on look here. And of course, in Rockport, it is summer. So what would a ski town look like in summer is essentially what I'm going for here. Because of course, although Whistler, for example, is built around skiing, there is still a ton of stuff going on in the summer. When I was there in, I think it was August when I was in there, it was still a really happening town. There was still a ton of people walking about, and the town actually has a pretty decent nightlife as well. You know, I was walking around at night, you know, maybe a bit later in the evening, and I mean, just everything was still packed. There was still people walking around. So I imagine there's probably like some downhill biking going on, or, you know, probably some other sports that can make use of these massive ski hills. But all I'm trying to say is I'm no expert. So if there's any improvements that I can make in this build, please let me know. And another challenge I had during this build as well is how I was going to provide all my services to this town, such as water and power. Because of course, in City Skylines 1, water and power work a little bit differently than in the sequel. We don't have water pipes or electricity running through roads. So I had to go with other means to deliver power. Now, ski towns are, you know, I guess more of like a green type of town compared to a lot of other types of towns, you know. For example, you know, some towns might be completely based or kept alive by some sort of industry, right? Whether it be mining, or maybe there's like a big refinery or something in the town. Well, skiing is basically what keeps this town alive. So I'm going with a whole green theme here. So that's why I decided to build a geothermal power plant over here, which generates a fair bit of power, I would have to say. 80 megawatts, it should suffice for at least a little while. But yeah, that's the power plant that I went for here, just kind of going with that green, you know, renewable kind of state. And of course here, I was noticing that traffic was already starting to pile up in town, but the traffic was going all the way literally across the map because I had only provided one entrance to the town. So it was time to build an interchange to go into town. I know this is just going to immediately get packed with traffic, but that's okay. Eventually we'll develop the infrastructure properly over here. Now, like I explained earlier, I want this to be an actual functioning town. And for it to be a functioning town, there has to be local residents So now I'm going to start and place down some homes surrounding the actual ski village. And what better pack of homes to use than these green homes? So I'm just going to go ahead and plop these modern looking green homes all around this ski village, but I'm also going to make sure to include different styles of homes as well. I made a conscious effort to plop down some nicer homes up in the mountains a little bit. You know, of course, skiing is a very expensive sport, and you know, the more passionate skiers who have lots of money will have their nice mansions up in the mountains kind of thing. So there's going to be a nice collection of some really, really nice posh houses here too. But I'm also going to plop down a bunch of little tiny houses as well that could, you know, be little cottage kind of things, you know, just for the average Joe. Because there is a number of ski towns kind of in my area that have like these little cottage villages near them where people can just go for the winter type thing if they really enjoy skiing. So although the ski village is technically a part of Rockport, I'm going to make it totally self-sufficient. Like I explained earlier, there's going to be schools, hospitals, everything, and its own residents as well. So it's just going to be totally self-sufficient. It may as well just be its own town, but eventually it's going to get amalgamated into the greater Rockport area. With us building this across the river, we're no longer on the actual Rockport Peninsula. I'm really excited to be finally starting to build in this area because I have so many ideas that I want to bring to life. It's crazy. Like, I have this entire area mapped out. There's going to be something unique about every build that we're going to do around downtown. It's going to be really fun, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Now, I don't want to spoil anything just yet, but I can say one of my plans is I want to build another airport. But this airport is not going to be an international airport like we found in the actual city. It's going to be more catered towards the general aviation crowd, right? So with this being, you know, a more posh area, I would say, because there's going to be, there's the ski village. There's also going to be another golf course in this area. I'm also planning to build a golf course in this area. So, you know, that draws in a particular crowd, and it tends to be the crowd who is most likely to, you know, maybe have a little Cessna or something, you know, just a little plane to putter around with. So we're going to be getting into that. But anyway, suffice to say, there's going to be a really, really cool collection of things coming in this area of the city that you are definitely going to want to check out. Now, I haven't built anything yet, apart from the ski village, but all that cool stuff is to come. It's in the plan, and I'm really hopeful that eventually we can finish this entire city, at which point I will provide it to you guys if you want to download and play on the city. It's going to be very accessible for pretty much anybody because I'm not playing with any custom assets or anything like that. It's all base assets. So that'll be really convenient for you guys. I'm not sure if the city will run without mods at this point. I imagine you may have to install some mods, but we'll figure that out at some point. But anyways, I'm just kind of rambling on at this point, guys. So yeah, I'm just going to continue plopping down some houses. I'm going to get into some smaller little cottages now, and I'm just going to build around the ski village. The ski village is mostly complete as far as infrastructure and buildings at this point. But a bit later in this episode, I'm going to go I'm going to gloss over this entire build that we have so far, and I'm going to properly detail it, get down into the nitty gritty of everything, and put down some props, all that kind of stuff to make it really pop and feel alive. Now, I've also included a few buildings outside of this content creator pack. I've included the, I believe it's like a wood lodge or something like that, like a mountain lodge that was included in the hotels pack. It matches up really nicely with this content creator pack. So that building I placed a bit earlier on in this episode. So it's actually a functional hotel, and it seems to be actually performing quite well, because one of the things that that hotel wants is some dramatic terrain, you know, some really awe-inspiring, some sort of natural feature, and the mountains seem to do this quite well. And with the amount of tourists that are being brought in by all the other buildings, it just jam-packs this hotel full of people. So that's one of the buildings that I plopped down. And I also plopped down a, I think it's a nature museum that was included in the Park Life DLC, which also ends up matching quite well. So there's actually a number of buildings included in the Park Life DLC that I end up using in this build as well, that are exactly in the same theme as these mountain buildings. So, you know, sometimes you just have to sift through your menus, guys, and figure out, you know, what works with what. And at this point in City Skylines 1, I have a pretty good general idea of what goes with what, you know. When you're just dealing with vanilla assets, you get to know them pretty well. And as I've explained before, this is one of the reasons why I like playing with only vanilla buildings, because of that, right? You kind of have a limitation to what you can build. And I like that limitation because, for example, if I have access to 10,000 assets, then I end up with analysis paralysis when there's just so many options that I just get paralyzed and I don't know what to do. But having some sort of limitation and being forced to only use a specific set of assets, it kind of creates, it kind of removes a barrier in some sense. Hopefully you guys get what I'm saying, but that's just how I am. And yeah. So now we're moving into the actual ski hills. I've built some ski hills in the past in other series such as Dunswell, where these cable cars actually come in quite handy. Now, one challenge I always had with these buildings is how do we actually get water and power to them? And one thing I figured out, I mean, water's not a problem. We can just run pipes underground. I guess power is the main issue. You know, I was gonna try to build like maybe a little trail of parks going up to the top, going to the top cable car, but then it was going to screw up with the terrain. So you know what? I said, screw it. I'm just going to plop these modern looking windmills. It looks kind of cool, and it doesn't look quite as out of place as plopping just a proper normal windmill. So I'm going to go with these cool looking windmills. These always remind me of Halo Reach. If you know, you know. But yeah, they do look cool, and I don't mind them being atop these mountains. I think they look fine, and they give kind of like a modern element to this whole build. So of course, every ski hill needs a ski lift, and this build here is certainly no exception. So I've kind of made up these little roads here because in addition to water and power, these buildings need a road connection. So to kind of cheat my way through that, I just built a dirt road going right up to them, and it, you know, it doesn't look half bad. I think I'm okay with how it looks. And of course, I'm gonna do a little bit of work with some bushes and, you know, grass textures and stuff like that to kind of blend these dirt roads in. But this third ski hill here, I had a little bit more of a challenge to overcome because the ski lift doesn't really follow the path back down to the foothills. So you actually go up on kind of the side of the ski hill, and then you ski your way around. So with this being basically a massive cliff, I wasn't going to be able to just build a dirt path directly underneath the cable cars. And what I had to do in this case is just to run my dirt road alongside where you would actually ski. So, you know, whatever. It is what it is. There is still limitations to the game, and I don't really feel like installing any more mods at this point. Oh, one thing that I can't forget to point out, and honestly I should have pointed this out earlier, because this is a brand new version of the game, some mods are not working, such as node controller. I believe the intersection marking tool is not working as well. As you can see down in my my toolbar down below, there's missing some icons. So just note that some things are not working right now, kind of limiting what I can build, but it's okay. I'm sure those mods are being fixed, and they're probably going to be fixed by the time this video goes out, so it won't be an issue any longer. And this is the part of the video where I get into detailing. So at this point, I have plopped one of every building in this content creator pack. In fact, you can only place every building once, except a number of services. So you have a police station and I believe a little medical clinic that you can plop as many times as you like, but all the hotels and kind of like the main buildings can only be plopped once. So anyways, one of every building has been plopped. So now I've built this kind of common area in between all of these buildings, and I've used various parks that are also included in this content creator pack. So I'm just going to detail them up all nice. I'm going to add some trees as well as, you know, some nice fixtures, fountains, little tables, little shops, things like that. Things that I was just basically running through my prop menu and finding stuff that would look cool in a particular area. So honestly, I really like the way this turned out. I like how there's kind of like a back alleyway in between these buildings. It really reminds me of Whistler, because Whistler, they kind of adopted, I guess, a more European street pattern with lots of little alleyways in between the buildings, and you kind of have to like weave through town rather than it just being a grid. So that's something that's, you know, I tried to kind of implement into this build. Now, unfortunately, my game crashed and I was forced to recreate some of these areas. I just kind of quickly did it off camera and tried to make it as close to what I was making it in this video to be. But, you know, it's just City Skylines things. Sometimes when you're playing with a bunch of mods, it happens. Luckily, I wasn't too far behind. I was able to just like quickly build my props and things like that. So it wasn't too bad. But anyway, with this detailing being pretty much complete, let me know what you think down in the comments, guys, of this build. Are you going to pick up this content creator pack by Teddy Radko? I highly suggest you do. It is wonderfully detailed. It's just really, really made. And I'm not just saying that because, you know, he's my buddy and whatever, and everybody loves Teddy. I'm genuinely saying that because it is a really, really awesome pack, and I genuinely think you should pick it up. So yeah, I mean, this was a really fun build, honestly, guys. I am going to be getting into other content creator packs that have previously been released for the game. I think it would be pretty cool to create these kind of unique areas throughout the map. So we'll just have to see how the city develops. But overall, like I said, I'm super excited to finally be on this side of the pond. I have the whole area mapped out. There's going to be beaches and all kinds of fun stuff, so you'll just have to stay tuned for that. Speaking of staying tuned, you should also stay tuned to the very end of this video, as I'm going to include some wonderful cinematics of what we've built today, so you're definitely going to want to check that out. But yeah, other than that, guys, that is going to be it for this episode. I really appreciate you tuning in, and if you enjoyed this video, drop a like. Also, like I said, let me know down in the comments what you think. And certainly don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of future videos. And also, don't forget to check out my Patreon page if you're interested. There's some pretty cool perks to be had on there. So guys, that is it for me today. Until the next episode, take care.